Venezuela is not only claiming ownership of Essequibo, it also claims it has rights over the seas, which Guyana currently has sovereign rights to. It's been more than 120 years since a panel of distinguished arbitrators from Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States determined that the territory called Essequibo would officially be a part of what was then British Guyana. Yet in 2024, Venezuela continues to assert rights over this large chunk of resource-rich land located near its eastern border, as well as the sea extending into the Atlantic Ocean. Ironically, Angelina Jaffe, the former ambassador of Venezuela to Luxembourg, does not think Guyana should be surrendering any of its land territory to her country. However, she does make a strong argument for the Bolivarian Republic to acquire maritime rights to territorial waters that run into the Atlantic Ocean between Guyana and Venezuela. We're going to hear what Jaffe said in a recent interview and look at the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, Territorial Sea and Contiguous Zone as it relates to a country's rights to certain parts of the sea. You are watching The Final Takeaway, where we assess facts, analyze information, and provide opinions on controversial stories of interest across the globe. Welcome to all our subscribers and viewers who come from over 50 countries across the world, including Spain, Germany, Mexico, and India. But our top 10 countries so far are as follows: Guyana, the United States, Canada, Trinidad and Tobago, the United Kingdom, Suriname, Barbados, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the Netherlands, followed by Brazil, which is number 11. Before you go, subscribe to our channel and make us your home for everything you need to know about the Venezuela-Guyana border dispute. Join to receive exclusive membership benefits like priority replies to your comments. There are other ways to support us by watching the advertisements on the videos, sending a super thanks, and sharing our videos across your social media platforms. Skip over to our community page to chat with fellow subscribers or members anytime for free. The land boundary dispute driven by Venezuela has escalated in recent times, more particularly around 2015, when massive oil and gas reserves worth billions of dollars were discovered off the coast of Guyana. The country's current president, Nicolas Maduro, amped up efforts to seize the territory, with the latest gesture being a referendum held in Venezuela on December 3rd, 2023. This dispute is so old, it should have already died a natural death, except it hasn't. A panel of distinguished jurists concluded over 120 years ago that Essequibo would officially and rightfully be a part of the then British Guyana. Essequibo is one of 3 regions in Guyana and is the largest, stretching for approximately 62,000 square miles. Venezuela accepted the 1899 ruling, sealed in a historical piece of document called the 1899 Arbitral Award. The document serves as proof of sovereignty and control of the territory, both for British Guyana and now the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Not only that, the 1899 document is widely recognized under international law as a full, final, and legally binding settlement of the Venezuelan border dispute over Essequibo and the seas that naturally form a part of Guyana's territory under the principles of maritime boundaries. While acknowledging Venezuela believes Britain stole Essequibo from it in 1899, Ambassador Jaffe implies that the issue may be moot at this point. In other words, too old to rehash and prove otherwise. Here's that clip.
Venezuela do have the need to secure its rights in the sea and the maritime projection of the landmass. And that is, for me, the most important thing. The delta of the Orinoco has its projection to the Atlantic Sea, the ocean, and Venezuela has rights in the sea. It has delimited the frontier with Trinidad and Tobago.
Jaffe was on a panel with Guyana's former ambassador to the United States, Riyad Insanally, and former Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defence Force, Dr. Gary Best. Guyana's former ambassador to the United States, Riyad Insanally, thinks otherwise.
A larger country is threatening a smaller country. It's an asymmetrical relationship. It's a David and Goliath issue. And Guyana has no option but to look to the international court for a peaceful and legally binding settlement.
Guyana is bound by Venezuela on the west. In accordance with the 1899 document regarding Essequibo, Guyana also has lawful control over the sea, internal waters, and other waterways near Venezuela. As with other nations, and according to the UN laws of the sea, quote, the sovereignty of a coastal state extends beyond its land territory and internal waters. The country will have jurisdiction over these areas, also known as territorial waters. More specifically, territorial waters include internal waters, the territorial sea, the contiguous zone, and the exclusive economic zone, which is a major problem for Venezuela at the moment because that's precisely where large reserves of oil was found in Guyana. These areas are sometimes called the Maritime Zone. In some cases, it can also include waters that extend to the continental shelf. A country's territory does not include the high seas, however. Venezuela is also claiming a portion of Guyana's territorial waterways. The former Venezuelan ambassador says her country has rights to the sea occupied by Guyana. The country's focus, she says, should be on acquiring maritime rights to its portion of the sea through the process of marking the boundaries, also called delimitation. For Guyana, the boundaries are already marked or delimited. Let's talk more about Guyana for a bit. Guyana lies on the northern coast of South America. Its 285-mile coastline extends from a location called Punta Playa near the mouth of the Orinoco River in the northwest to the Corentyne River in the east. These facts are according to countryreports.org. Also, keep in mind that the waters running from the land border of Essequibo runs into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, let's discuss the sea that forms a part of the territory of a coastal state. Guyana is considered a coastal state and has sovereign rights that extend into the North Atlantic Ocean. In reference to the territorial sea under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, Part 2, Article 2 states, quote, the sovereignty over the territorial sea is exercised subject to this convention and to other rules of international law. It therefore follows that any change to Guyana's territorial sea has to be made in accordance with those rules. On that note, here are a few things to keep in mind. Number 1, numero uno. Not because Venezuela is laying claims to parts of Guyana's water territory means those claims are valid. Number 2, numero dos. Guyana is not entitled to give the Bolivarian Republic a portion of its sea or internal waters simply because the country says so. In fact, under the Guyana Constitution, any part of Guyana's territory which covers the land, the territorial sea, and the air above the land and sea cannot simply be traded or given away, except by a referendum in Guyana where the people agree to surrender such territory. Guyanese always say, not a blade of grass. They are not going to give up any part of their country. And number 3, numero tres. Venezuela will have to argue and prove its claims before the United Nations and the International Court of Justice, using the laws of the Sea Convention and other international laws and rules. Any ruling in favor of Venezuela will have to be lawful, just, and equitable to all parties involved. A legal process like this is complex and can take years or even decades to resolve. But most of all, there is a catch. Here is the biggest hurdle for Venezuela. The land and water boundaries are inextricably tied together. A claim on the territorial sea belonging to Guyana, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, an independent nation since 1966, cannot begin until the claim to Essequibo is resolved legally by the UN court.
In international law, the land dominates the sea. The land border, therefore, is the key point to determine where the maritime border is drawn. We have to settle this issue of the land border before we can even start discussing the maritime line that divides Venezuela's waters from Guyana's waters.
Venezuela and Guyana are currently parties to a case regarding the validity of the 1899 arbitral award that granted Essequibo and, by extension, its territorial waters to Guyana. This case is before the International Court of Justice, as I mentioned earlier, and it can take years before a final ruling is made. And do remember, the court does not have to decide on whether Guyana has rights over Essequibo or not. For Venezuela to have a real case for Essequibo and parts of the sea under Guyana's control, the court would have to rule that the 1899 document in question that gives Guyana its sovereignty over Essequibo, that document is invalid or void. At this point, the situation would revert back to the status quo ante, meaning the state of the situation right before the 1899 arbitral award was passed down. You were watching The Final Takeaway. Subscribe to our channel and make us your home for everything you need to know about the Venezuela-Guyana border dispute. Join to receive exclusive membership benefits like priority replies to your comments, special badges, special emojis, discount and merchandise, and so much more. There are other ways to support us by watching the advertisements on the videos, sending super thanks, and sharing our videos across your social media platforms. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.